Join us to get exclusive and rare access to some of the industry's best leaders. Leaders who will share all their secrets to success with you. Leaders who have closed thousands of successful deals between them, generating hundreds of billions of dollars. And leaders giving you the roadmap to fast track your career and reach the highest echelons of the business. So welcome to the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast, and best of luck on your growth journey. We have another amazing guest for you all today. I'm super excited to be joined by David Lamb, who's the Vice Chair and Managing Partner at Deloitte Corporate Finance Canada. David is a seasoned investment banking professional with extensive experience in M&A, financing, and divestitures, having closed hundreds of deals throughout his career. Now, getting to know David, he's really an entrepreneur at heart, and he started his career straight out of college buying and running fast food franchises, where he got the bug for buying and selling businesses. This led him to some time at KPMG before moving to corporate finance and valuations. And then he took a role at TELUS, a Canadian telco, where he led their M&A efforts over a 5-year period. But it was in 2006 that David found the perfect match for his entrepreneurial drive by joining Deloitte in Vancouver as employee number 1 for their corporate finance practice. And it's here that David utilized his varied skills and strengths to grow his personal brand as well as the business for the firm. And across a 19-year run, David and Deloitte have grown tremendously, creating a unique culture for the IB community. And this period saw David lead different regions before being promoted to head of the Canada region back in 2019. The first Asian to hold this role for a financial institution in history, I might add. So having got to know David, I've learned he is driven by building a great culture, supporting growth, and helping those he leads to have the best years of their career. He's passionate about entrepreneurship and how everyone can treat their position as their own business. He has a unique ability to make the complex simple. I learned this in our pre-recording. So I'm really excited to get in today's discussion with him. So welcome to the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast, David, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me. And I think I need to bring you with me everywhere I go to set that intro for me. I think I'm like 10 times more impressive the way you're describing me than reality. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. My services are up, so let me know.
We are on success fees, just to let you know.
That's super. So let's start with you introducing Deloitte Corporate Finance and what you do for your clients to our listeners.
Yeah, you bet. For those who don't know, Deloitte Corporate Finance, we are a middle market investment banking business in Canada. We focus on 3 things. We help our clients do acquisitions. We help our clients raise capital, either debt or equity, or we help them do divestitures. So those 3 are main areas. We're truly middle market. We do deals, enterprise value between 50 million to 500 million. I would say the average is about 150 to 250 million enterprise value. Although we, a few months ago, our Montreal office closed a deal for 1.3 billion. So you certainly have outliers.
Yes.
We definitely are a boutique investment banking team that happens to sit on a global platform that allows us to have access to buyers and investors right across the world. Just to give you a sense of scale, Pete, we have almost 500 million people around the world in 100 countries. And I think in calendar 23, we had about $5 billion in revenue. Very huge organization, but we are very entrepreneurial that happens to do investment banking. And in Canada, we've been ranked number 1 by volume per emerging market for the past 5 or 6 years. Not that we're smarter than anyone else. I think it's a reflection of just our passion and our desire to help Canadian entrepreneurs and founders in their transaction.
Love that. Thanks for the neat introduction and congrats on the success, both the large deal in Montreal and the continued success in Canada, leading the tables. And why don't you tell the listeners before we get into the meat of today's discussion, something interesting or unknown about you?
Let on some things unknown about me. I would say I fought when I was young. So this is in the early 90s. I was in competitive kickboxing. MMA wasn't really around yet. And my career goal was actually to be martial arts choreographer for movies. That's where I wanted my career to go. I didn't want to be a movie star. I don't want to be an actor. I just wanted to be in the background, choreographing fight scenes for movies. I told my dad, I said, that's my passion. And he says, that's awesome. That's great, son. No, go get your business degree. So I can't say that he gave me bad advice, but that was my initial career ambition.
Wow. I'm sure you took something away from the discipline of the fighting and kickboxing, and I'm
Very,
sure helped you, right? Cool. Let's get into the meat of the conversation. Tell us a bit about your first experience as an entrepreneur out of college.
yeah,
I was really interested to hear that.
yes. So my family, my dad is very entrepreneurial. My family is entrepreneurial from Hong Kong. And when we came from Hong Kong to Canada, we got into the food business. And so I grew up in the food business. And after graduating from university, I didn't want to work for anyone. I just wanted to be my own boss. So I got into quick service retail, fast food franchises, etc. I bought them, I sold them, I built them from four bare walls. Really enjoyed it and did it for about 6 or 7 years before I decided to go back to get my CA designation. So that's really the formative years of my career, to be an entrepreneur, putting money on the line and building businesses.
That's amazing and a
Uh,
really unique journey. I've spoken to lots of leaders in lots of countries, but you're the first one who's stepped out of college and had that 6 or 7 years really as an entrepreneur before taking up finance.
Pete, I think I mentioned this to you before. When I bought my first business, it was a retail location. It was $200,000. And I basically
Mm.
took out $200,000 of debt against my house. And the only equity I put into the business was the $50 in the cashier, in the float. So that could open up the next day. And that's the equity. That's the only money I put in. And I paid down our debt in about 6 months.
That's amazing. What drive and not risk adverse, eh?
Lots
I
of
like
fun.
it. So with that unique journey, and,
Yeah.
and I mentioned it in the introduction that you're a true entrepreneur at heart. So how has your entrepreneurial skills helped you succeed in your career in finance?
I think anyone who spent time in restaurants, retail, and fast food, they would understand that it is really a game of thin margins. You have to orchestrate
Mhm.
a lot of things to just make a couple of dollars. What I've learned there is really the value of execution. You have to execute things perfectly in restaurants in order for you to make a little bit of money. So I
Mhm.
took that lesson all the way through to where I am today. So the second thing I would say is, because I spent my early years out of university as an entrepreneur, I have never lost my self-employed mentality. And I say this to young people all the time. I think folks think they are an employee. I have an employer. And I would challenge them to say, no, you are actually self-employed. You're running a business called David Lamb Inc. And it's no
Mhm.
different. You have to think about your operations, how you serve your customers, your capabilities, your marketing, how do you build a brand, what type of investments you want to make into this company so that you can generate better business down the road. Really no different. And I find with that self-employed mentality, it gives you one very important thing, which is a sense of agency. So you run your own business. You happen to have a customer concentration issue with one employer, but you're, rather than dealing with a difficult boss, you're just dealing with a demanding customer or client. And that's how you get your business, right? From one client at a time.
I love that self-employed mentality, how you put it, and I can see how that's powerful
Yeah.
in terms of driving, as you say, a sense of agency and self-worth
Yes,
and performance. So
absolutely.
really love that. And I guess entrepreneurial skills help you connect with your client. Is that fair to say? Is there a piece there that you found really useful too?
Yeah. We serve founders and entrepreneurs, and I understand how they think because I was in their shoes as well. I had to sell our family business, our the franchises as well. So really first-hand experience of what a good advisor feels like and looks like, and what not so good advisor can look like. So we absolutely connect on that level. Motivated and inspired to help them realize their own family objectives, and because I see myself in my clients many times.
I can see how that's really useful, and the connection that you must have helps you to give the best advice. So I love that as well. And you mentioned obviously that you build or help build that mentality. If this is your business, you're self-employed. Are there tips or advice you have to build that personal brand you mentioned, and to really build the skill set to think like you're self-employed?
The key is when you're building your own brand, building your own business, building your own career, whatever the situation is, you do have to be genuine and find your own path in many ways. And it's hard in the early days. Like I started this business over 25 years ago,
Hmm.
and 25 years ago, there's not a lot of people that in investment banking or corporate finance looked like me, let alone at a national level, like running the business across the country. So I try to emulate the rainmakers and the leaders back then. And I had some success, but it was a real struggle, Pete, to try to
Yeah.
maintain that level because it's hard to try to be someone you're not. And I'm just not that guy who talks the loudest in the room. I'm not that guy who sucks up the airtime when I'm in the room. I can't talk about baseball or football because I don't really watch it very much. I don't play golf and I don't drink that much. It was very difficult for me to try to emulate and try to fit in. And I just got to the point where I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be myself because no one can say I'm doing it wrong if I'm being myself. And I think once I came to that realization, took that approach, real success started to come my way. And I always remember someone said to me, Picasso once said it took him 4 years to paint like his idol, Raphael, but it took a lifetime to paint like himself. And I think
Yeah.
my journey is I continuously try to find a way that I do M&A that is uniquely me. And I think that my success has been a result of that. And isn't that what we all try to do? The journey that we're all on is trying to genuinely express ourselves in whatever art form we pick in our lives.
I really love that take. And you're right. You be genuine. And it's tough because investment banking is fueled by mentorship and by trying to emulate successful leaders
Yes.
and people there. So I can really understand how that was a challenge to
Yes.
break free of that. And you're
Especially
right.
when
Do you have-
people don't look like you or we're from different cultural backgrounds. It's hard to pick someone to say, I'm going to be like that person. And the biggest thing I found is that success can come to you in your own way. You can't do it exactly like your boss. You just have to find your own path.
And any tips for those listening that I'm sure this is going to resonate with our listeners and they're probably tuning in and thinking, yeah, hey, how do I find my own style? How do I be more genuine? Any tips or advice from that perspective?
For sure. And I mentor a lot of bankers and corporate finance folks across the country. And we talk about this all the time. Like, how do you find something that is authentically you, but also that's effective? And I would say it's a work in progress all the time. It's a journey of self-discovery and you have to embrace your own uniqueness. Absolutely. You learn from others. You learn from senior guys, but you want to just take what works and discard the things that doesn't work, right? You want to take inspiration from people, but you don't want to imitate them. That's not a distinction without a difference. And it's basically trial and error. And along the way, you have to have a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness. And most importantly, you have to have the courage to be honest with yourself. And I always said that our greatest enemy to achieving success is self-deception, right? Because by definition, you don't know you're deceiving yourself. And so it's really difficult to be honest with yourself, but you have to really find your own way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And being honest with yourself, being tough on yourself, being best critic and reflection. I think there's not enough reflection done, especially in this industry that's fast paced and demanding. And as quick as a deal's done, another one's on the way. So I think
it's hard to be honest.
Resonates with me.
Yeah. It's hard to be honest about what you're really good at, what you're not good at, what you really like and what you don't like. And what you like, not what other people like or what your family wants you to do or what you think society wants you to do. You just have to be true to yourself. It is very difficult. And it is a journey of self-discovery for sure.
Is that best like a solo exercise when you're being honest with yourself, or is it really leaning into mentorship?
Yeah, mentorship for sure. I always find your family gives you the worst advice because they want what's best for you. And sometimes it's not as candid and it's not as partial. So you do have to surround yourself with mentors and peers who you can have very radically candid discussions with. Because I think once you are honest, remove self-deception, you have a very clear path to figuring out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Love that. That's great. That's a really different take to what I've heard in previous interviews. And there's a lot there to focus on that can really help. I know as well that you're a big believer of not being a victim of your own circumstances.
Yep,
how do you take control of your career and path?
So I would say to take control of your career and the career path, number one, I think we talked about having a self-employed mentality is extremely critical. Number two would be don't chase currency. Let currency chase you. Okay. And how do you let currency chase you? You just focus on developing the skills to make mills. That's what we say. Because if you can actually develop the skill to make mill, money will just will follow you. That's just how the market works. So you have to stop focusing on things that could hold you back and really find ways to rise above your own circumstances and be successful despite of fill in the blanks. I really believe in this, Pete, like greatness in its purest form, whether it's in art, sports, or business, it's the ability to be successful despite of fill in the blanks, despite of your lack of education, despite of your upbringing, despite of your competitors' advantages compared to you, despite of discrimination, despite of whatever that you want to fill in that blank. The ability to rise above it and be successful despite of your obstacles is the key, right? So my advice is it's easy to look at things that could possibly hold you back, but don't, and just lock in on the things that will inspire you to drive forward.
Yeah, the mindset is so important there, isn't it? And I think having lived the last 18 months, we're directly connected to the financial markets. And as we know, it's been a challenging 18 months, right? So are you going to be a victim of the circumstances or are you going to find ways to overcome that? So it definitely resonates. I can understand why the focus on developing skills to make meals is a
Well,
soundbite that works. So I like that.
I'll tell you something like in Chinese literature, there's probably a handful of things that is often written about, painted, admired, right? And the Chinese lotus flower is one of them. If you go into any store, we always have painting of the lotus flower, poems about the lotus flower. Not only that it's a beautiful flower and it smells nice, but it's the uniqueness is actually where you can find them. And you find the lotus flower not on the grass, but it's right in the middle of very dirty ponds, muddy area. So in a very muddy area, out comes this beautiful flower. And so Chinese people looked at the lotus flower and it became a symbolism for the ability to rise above your environment. No matter how negative or how prohibitive it is, nothing should stop you from rising up and realizing your destiny. That whole concept about rising above our own circumstances to achieve greatness is very much embedded in our culture and our philosophy.
Powerful concept. I didn't know the story behind the lotus flower.
Now,
And again, the way you explain it, shot in the arm, positivity this afternoon for everybody that we're going to share this with. Okay, let's move into leadership. It is a leadership podcast. So what's been key to your success as a leader?
If you ask different people, maybe you'll get different answers. And I focus on trying to lead by example. I think that's pretty important. People can see whether you practice what you preach. So it's very important that you do what you say you want others to do. Lead by example is very important. And I would say I only have two jobs as the managing partner of the Deloitte corporate finance business nationally. I only do two things. And if I can do these two things well, I will be winning all the time. One is I have to set the strategy so that I can provide direction to the team. That's one. Number two is I have to create the conditions under which my team can do their best work in their careers, right? And that's my job, to create the conditions where they can do their best work. And those conditions are transparency, accountability, and psychological safety. And if I could do that for the team, where they can do their best work and be their best self, and they understand our strategy, only good things can come out of those two things. And it's really sometimes that simple, Pete. It's not more complicated than that.
I said it in the intro, you have an ability to make the more complex simple. And that's a great example because you can look at these 50, 60 page strategy documents, right? But it's not actually going to connect with the team in the right ways. Breaking it down into those two key things, set the strategy, set the winning conditions, and you're going to win. That leads nicely more into the culture. So talk to me a bit about what you've done to build this unique culture.
Yeah, so culture is a very tough thing to build. I mean, anyone who's led teams will tell you this. We talk about it all the time. Culture is the personality of the group or of the team. It's the shared values, shared purpose of the team. And here, for us here at Deloitte M&A, we have to continuously talk about and demonstrate what we stand for. You can't just say it once. It's got to be continuous. So lots of communication and reinforcement. And again, we have to lead by example. Our culture, and I think every team culture is really about, you got to know what you stand for. And as leaders, we have to prove it in everything we say and everything that we do. And if we can do that, our people and our clients will try to help us win because they actually can rally behind what we're trying to accomplish. And here for us at Deloitte, we want to do great things. We want to build a dynasty that's going to last generations, way past when I'm gone. And that's the aspiration we have. Pete, you just talked about 60-page strategy documents, and we have to do the same thing. We have to prepare very detailed strategic plans for the leadership, but for the team, we actually distilled the 60-page strategy deck into 1 page, 3 bullet points in terms of what we try to accomplish and what we aspire to do. Number one, we want to work on the coolest shit. Number two, we're here to build next generation rainmakers. Number three, we're here to have fun and find joy. And that's it. We distilled it down to 3 things. We put it on one slide. And that's the culture of Deloitte Corporate Finance.
That's amazing. And again, talk about taking the complex and making it simple. Work on cool shit, build rainmakers, find fun and joy.
Yes.
I can see why your team, the team there, wants to work there and wants to grow there. How difficult was it to distill that 60-page doc, 50-page doc into these 3? Talk to me about that, because I think a lot of firms and a lot of people would really struggle with that.
Yes, because simplicity is hard. And we tend to want to focus on a lot of different things. But it was a process of us partners sitting together and say, what are we trying to do here beyond the paycheck? Because none of us are, in our team, none of us are paycheck players. We are here to do something greater. We want to build something not just for ourselves. Deloitte's been around for 170 years, and it's going to be around for another 170. So I don't own anything. I'm just a custodian of this business, and my responsibility is to make sure I pass it down to the next generation in better shape. And ultimately, when we're honest with ourselves, what do we really want? We didn't say anything about making money on that slide, right? We didn't say anything about being number one and anything like that. We just want to work on the coolest shit, because that's fun, filling, it gives you bragging rights. And so we went through ourselves, what do we truly want? And without the self-deception. And that's how we came up with it. That was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
And you got to have fun, right? Like, we spent so much time with each other, way more than our family and our spouses. And so we have to have fun, and we have to find joy in everything that we do.
You're someone who sets the strategy, the vision for Outram, you give me some ideas, and I'm sure that it's something I could improve upon.
I think you're having making it simple. I think you're having some fun, right?
The fun part for sure, yeah. But maybe making things more simple. I could take a leaf out of your book there for sure. Recognition comes up as an important part of culture and engagement. Can you talk to me how you recognize success within your teams?
So this is tricky. Investment banking, the money business, all of us, we're no different. We charge our clients based on success fee. So you close, you make money. You don't close, you're a goat. But how we think about success in our firm is I watch for someone's process, how they're executing against process rather than the outcome. Because our business is up and down. There's a lot of things that are beyond our control in terms of a deal closing or not closing. Certainly there are things within our control. It's a long sales cycle. And what that means is you can actually, the cause and the effect, the time between cause and effect is so protracted. If you're doing the right things, you may not see the positive outcome immediately. Similarly, if you are doing the wrong things, you don't see the negative implications until a year or 2 down the road. It's not sometimes the only metric. It shouldn't be the only metric. We do have to look at how you process. I'll tell you another great analogy, and this is the analogy I use for our team. So in China, when you grow bamboo, bamboo is an amazing plant. It's super durable, lots of strength, but it's flexible at the same time. So the way the bamboo farmers in China, the way they grow it is they plant all the seeds, and then they'll water it every day for a year. And at the end of the year, you see nothing. Next year, you water it every day, you see nothing. Third year, you water it every day, you see nothing. Fourth year, nothing. Fifth year, nothing. But by the end of fifth year, the bamboo will break out of the ground. And as soon as it breaks out of the ground, it takes about 60 days to grow to 100 feet high. So to the untrained eye, the question is, how long does it take a bamboo to grow to 100 feet tall, right? To the untrained eye, they will say it took 60 days. The answer is no. It actually took 5 years. right? Even though
Yeah.
you do not see the result, it is actually the infrastructure and the root system is actually building underneath the foundation when it hits. And success is a lot like that. So what it means to us in corporate finance and investment banking is you have to be persistent. You have to be disciplined and you have to have faith that you're doing the right things. So that's what I look for in terms of recognizing success.
Love it. And again, about the journey, right? It
It's
is a
about the
journey.
journey.
You don't see the results till later. I love the analogy with the bamboo. Makes a lot of sense and resonates well. So thanks for sharing that. And got to put
I,
the yards in, right? If you want the success.
I'm bringing Chinese philosophy to investment banking.
Well, you're doing a good job. I think there's going to be some good sound bites certainly today. Thanks. We haven't talked much about that kind of client relationship side, and that's
Sure.
something that you're an expert in. So, how do you manage client relationships through building trust, delivering tough news, managing expectations? It's all critical to success on deals
Yes.
in the industry. So, how do you
Correct.
do this effectively?
Yeah. That's assuming I'm doing it effectively. I don't know if, I don't know sometimes if I'm doing it effectively, but it's a great question, Pete, because we're in a business where we're trying to convince our clients to do a deal. And so they will often look at us and say, are they telling us telling us the truth or are they just looking at the success? Because if it closes, we get millions of dollars. If it doesn't, we get nothing. So there's an obvious question around motives. So it is very difficult. And I think in order for you to deliver tough news and manage expectation, the first thing you have to do is to create trust. And sometimes trust is easy, especially with existing clients. But if it's a brand new client, how do you demonstrate that you could be trustworthy? So our business is very psychological in many ways. And I think that's the fun part of it all. And I would say the way you build trust is that you have to demonstrate credibility and reliability throughout. And most importantly, clients are looking for self-orientation or selfishness. Are you making decisions? Are you giving advice to them based on your own incentives? Or are you trying to do the right thing for them, even at the expense of the transaction and success fee? So they're always looking at that, whether they say it or not, it's in the back of their minds. So I think as an advisor, right from the beginning, you just got to demonstrate that you are always thinking in their best interest. And if the deal doesn't happen this year or this time around, we're going to be there with them, shoulder to shoulder, all the way to the end, even if it's 5 years from now.
Okay. And then there are other ways at that early stage where you can lean into building, like examples of how to build that credibility and reliability.
Yeah, you're going to be sick of my analogies, but the way I think about building relationship with a client in an M&A context is we have an emotional bank account
Hmm.
we take on, and you have to make deposits into
Hmm.
that account because you know you'll be withdrawing from that account down the road when we are negotiating the purchase and sale agreement and we're really trying to pressure our client to acquiesce to get the deal done. And they will not listen to you at the end. They don't trust you. Then they think you're just trying to get them to do a deal. Or in other words, they're gonna not gonna, you can't withdraw unless you have a really healthy bank account. So the question is, how do you build up that healthy bank account early on and make deposits, right? And
Yep.
things like protecting them in terms of how you're dealing with the buyers early on, demonstrating the willingness, persuade them to walk away from the deal if the deal is not meeting objectives. Those are the things that's going to allow you to build up your emotional bank account with the client. And then when you start to withdraw, there's currency there for you to do so.
Okay, perfect. That makes a lot of sense and a good analogy. I think that can be really well understood. So, and what about the tough news part? Is there a knack to that, a skill set to that
Yeah.
as well?
There's no, you just got to do it often. And it is, as you move up the ranks, as you become more and more senior in any role, not just investment banking, you find that most of your conversations are tough conversations. I say 90% of my conversations are tough conversations just because of your leadership role. So I always
Mm.
encourage young folks moving up the ranks, don't shy away from tough conversations, not just with your clients, but with your peer, with anyone, because you need reps to have it so that you have sincerity, that you have transparency, but that you're at least still yet articulate in terms of how you are communicating the tough news to people. It's
For
not
sure.
easy.
Candid feedback and delivering the right level of feedback to to help somebody is a real skill. And again, goes back to the trust, right? You need the trust there as
Yes.
the foundation to make that possible.
Yeah. And you have to be genuine. You have to be authentic and genuine. It'll always come back to authenticity. That's going to help you in every situation.
For sure. Okay, so we've got a lot of aspiring leaders. You've given them quite a bit of great advice already. And given your role, obviously involved with strategy and vision, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for leaders in the industry today?
The biggest opportunities would be, I think, in today's environment, there's a real opportunity for us to lead in a way that not only achieves financial, but do it in a way that promotes well-being. I think that's a real opportunity for the next generation of leaders. So it's not just about making money, but it's about making impact to our community, impact to our society, and impact to our people. I think that's a real positive change in corporate Canada, in corporate America. People start thinking about different bottom line. I think that's a real opportunity for leaders to really lead in. It is really much profit with a purpose. And there's a new way of doing this. It's just not about making money at all costs, but we can actually make money and still satisfy all the other important objectives. So I think that to
And you
me, it's a great opportunity for emerging leaders.
Excellent. And those that are interested in that, is that something that you're already on that journey, or really is just a thought process for up and coming leaders?
Yeah, it is for me. Sometimes we prioritize our team development more so than clients because my view is if you focus on our team and the people that are serving our clients, then our clients will be taken care of, right? And the things that we often talk about is, especially in a firm like ours, we're a training ground for many people. We're a stepping stone. Not everyone comes to Deloitte makes partner, right? To go into industry, go to other advisory firms, or go into government, which is totally fine. But one thing that is be changed, that our destiny has crossed, right? Because we have Deloitte on our resume, and our job, because we both have Deloitte on the resumes, my job is to make sure that they are at their best when they are out in the marketplace to represent. And so our focus is really about building people, not only their skills to be great M&A people, but great leaders and great human beings. So that's one of the biggest joy I have in terms of the leadership role with all the crap that I have to deal with is actually making a real impact on the next generation of leaders and how they actually.
The passion definitely comes across, and I'm sure the people feel it as well. And I agree with you on a much smaller level here at Oucher. Members that have come and worked with us and we're binded by that experience, you want the best for them and to have grown during their period
Yes.
here and go on to better things. It's definitely something I can connect with. How about on the flip side? Like, what do you see the biggest challenges for those leaders today and aspiring leaders today?
You know what? It's somewhat similar, I would say. Leadership can be, and most often is, a lonely position. Mental health is an issue for people who are senior. I think people forget leaders and CEOs and managing partners are people too. And we try to absorb a lot of the stress and pressure for the team. We try to provide air cover. You got to make sure that you take care of yourself. So I think that's a big challenge for leaders today. And I see it already in our firm and our client's firm I think it continues to be difficult to build a culture because I think we're next generation of leaders, they're not just looking at money, they're looking at a place of belonging and a sense of purpose to what they do. So I think the ability to build culture is a real art. It's going to be really important. And I would say, don't underestimate the skills and the importance of hiring the right people. I think we are very methodical and empirical and scientific with every aspect of our business, except for hiring. Hiring is it's getting way better, but there's a bit too much risk. So hiring the right people is, in my view, one of the most important things for our leaders.
Getting the right people on the bus. Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. And as a vice chair and heavily involved in strategy, what do you see generally in the industry that's maybe going to be big in 2025? We're recording this at the end of November. So what do you see?
I can easily give the canned questions about macroeconomics or Gen AI. geopolitical issues, supply chain. I'm trying to avoid those kind of typical comments because I think everyone would say the same thing and they're all true
Mhm.
for sure. I still feel like for 2025, are you thinking about the big, great themes, Pete, 2025
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, what come in strategic points more than, tactical.
Gotcha. I see the continuation of M&A, particularly in the private companies, because despite interest rates and supply chain and geopolitical issues, all that stuff that is true, there are two tailwinds that drive our business. And one is there's a lot of money in the system that is looking for alternative yield, and that doesn't change. That's just nature. And the second thing is people keep getting older. They can't stop. They can't stop getting old. They can't stop time. And I think the succession issue is big. It's real in North America. And that's going to drive our business over the long term, despite temporary hiccups, ups and downs.
Yeah, it's definitely looking more positive, and the outlook next year, I'm hearing from many leaders such as yourself, is a much more positive one. So let's hope so, right? For
Uh,
for both our sakes.
for sure. And I know people will say this, others that you've talked to will bring this up, but we are looking at Gen AI and how this Gen AI going to disrupt complex advisory work like ours. We're already seeing Gen AI. We're already seeing some of our clients using Gen AI in terms of target search, deliverables, in terms of marketing documents, writing, etc. But to what extent going to continue to penetrate to investment banking and M&A? Because our business is very human, people oriented. And I am very curious to see how can Gen AI deal with the decision making that exists in M&A, which is actually not logical. It's based on greed
Mm.
and fear. So how would Gen AI figure greed and fear is my question. And I'm anxious to
Yeah,
see how this all shake out.
it's got a long way to go there. It's really interesting, the topic, because 6, 7 months ago, the discussions I was having with leaders around AI was it's coming in and it's going to make changes. It's going to help with workload and we're going to see some growth. It's still new. And I feel like recently it's changed a little bit, the dialogue to that's still going to happen. But actually, what's going to happen is the clients are going to have more demand for FaceTime, more demand for your
Yes,
brain, because that's what they're paying for you for. And they understand that AI is making a difference in the background. So I find that transposition really interesting. How's that going to play out in 2025 and beyond? And I think there's a lot of unknowns. So yeah,
I agree.
exciting time, but challenging one probably as well on that front.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Most of our clients, we talk to them all the time about Gen AI. And this time is different than any other surges in technology in the past. This time, most of them will say, I'm just going to be a fast follower. I'm just going to watch how Gen AI impacts our certain industry, see who's doing it and how it all works, and then we'll do it. No one is jumping in there to say, I'm going to lead the way.
Someone's gonna have to be that pioneer eventually. So
Yeah,
we'll
for
see.
sure.
We'll see. But like you say, that seems like a smart play with so many unknowns. I can't believe it. We're moving towards the wrap section of the episodes. So we talked a lot about what helped you. I'm a big believer that leaders are readers. And to be honest, it's not just books these days, right? There's so many other resources, podcast materials. Which books, podcast materials do you recommend that have had a big impact on you?
I, I know lots of folks, they're prolific readers. A lot of my clients,
Mhm.
our CEO is, he just devour books. I do listen to podcasts and I read books, but I'm a real big fan of conversation with people. And it doesn't have to be people of significance or of stature or anything like that. Sometimes I just get the best insight when I'm at a coffee shop talking to an elderly gentleman next to me and just listen to their experience. I get a lot out of it. But I would say, having said that, I would say The Art of War is a book that I've read when I was 18, and it's had a profound impact on me in terms of how I think about not necessarily my environment, but how I think about myself. Because The Art of War is about knowing yourself. That was a great book. The other one is Behind the Golden Arches, which is a book about Ray Kroc and how he built up
Mhm.
McDonald's. And I was in the franchise business, and I really appreciated the way he looked at everything in terms of systems, and that execution is key. And today, And I notice this not only at our business, but at our clients, when something is not working, first reaction is they question the strategy. If it still doesn't give you the right answer, they question the market may have changed. The last thing they question is their execution. When in fact, you should question your execution first, right? Then your market, then your strategy. So I don't, those are the things I really took away from that book.
That's a great take and smart. Again, look, we talked about execution and the process before, so I can see why that resonates with you as well. If you could go back to your younger self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I would say, I think I over prioritize work through the years. I think about this all the time. I talk about this all the time. We all do when we get to this level. I think I could have achieved the same level of success, but with a more proper mind. When you're young, you just sometimes you have no perspective and you just think career is it. And I think I compromised. I know I compromised my family too much and I compromised my own health. Right. And so I think if I had to, what I would tell my younger self, well, and my younger self is there's no challenges I would not take on. Everything is personal. I had a chip on my shoulder. The only thing I turned down is my collar. And that kind of aggression, that kind of mentality sometimes work in the short term, but it's not going to work out in the long term. The other thing if I had a chance to talk to my younger self, I would definitely say, have gratitude, like practice gratitude, right? Because if you're not grateful and you don't have gratitude, you'll never have peace of mind. And you don't have peace of mind, you'll never have happiness. So what's the point in doing all this? And gratitude is about perspective, having the right perspective. And I wish I was able to develop a way to have good perspective about everything. And I was just reading something recently. I think the guy's name is Ansel Adams. He's a really famous American photographer. He said, you know what? The trick to take a really beautiful photograph is actually just knowing where to stand. And I thought about that and I said, wow, it's just where you stand. You could be looking at the same thing, but it's completely different depending on how you look at it. And I think that's something I wish I would have felt, that skill that I would have developed when I was younger. Just be able to look at things in a different way so that I have a bit of perspective, ease the pressure, and take a more balanced view of life, of work.
Great. Powerful stuff there. And I guess it's easier with experience, right? It's one of those things with
Yeah.
hindsight that becomes a lot easier.
I
But
know.
great advice.
Youth is
Anyone
wasted.
listening? That's it. Okay, yeah. David, anything I haven't asked you think the audience should know before we close this?
I say this to my team all the time. M&A is not a spectator sport. It's hand-to-hand combat. And I hope no one twisted your arm to get into this business. You come into this business willingly, free will, so you can't complain. There's a lot of ups and downs in this business, and you just have to have intestinal fortitude and the personality to be able to deal with the ups and downs. And I've seen, because I've been doing this for 25, 30 years, I've seen the best people leave this profession because of the downs, because the heartbreaks, working on a deal for 9 months or a year and it doesn't close. I've seen people cry when deal doesn't close. That's how emotionally invested M&A people are. They may not tell you this, but it's really hard, right? My advice to them is to make sure that they be even keel about their business, right? And the failures that you will have, is really just scars on the back, right? And the scars on your back is really points of references. And your points of references are really just data sets for you to use on your next deal so that you can look around the corner. And then all of a sudden, when this happens, when you keep working on deals, all of a sudden people start saying, hey, you have instincts. And it's not like that you had instincts. It's because you had your ass kicked so many times that you just know what you're doing. You know, that to me, that's number one. And the second thing I always say to my team is, when they're especially emerging leaders that's listening to your podcast, as they continue to elevate in their law firm, in the private equity firm, in the bank, wherever they are, as you escalate, more and more eyes are on you. You just don't know it, but the more senior you become, more leadership role you take on, there are more and more eyes on you, even though you don't know. Which means that without you knowing, you become the emotional barometer for people around. So if you are fearful, people will be fearful. If you're anxious, they will be anxious. If you're optimistic and hopeful about the business, they will be as well. So my advice is never vent down. Don't even vent sideways, only vent up, right? And keep it upwards and keep the positivity at your level or down. Does that all make sense, Pete?
It makes a lot of sense. As someone who tries to drive my emotions in a very even way, because of that, it definitely connects, and great advice. And I'm sure many listeners take it on board about the scars and understand that's part of the growth.
It's all
cycle,
part of it.
right? But what a great way to end the episode. David, thanks so much. It's been great chatting to you. Really appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm sure the audience are going to love this. So thank you.
You bet. It was great spending time with you, Pete, again.
Cheers. Take care.
Take care.
This episode was brought to you by Outram, the global leaders in the financial deal gift, awards, and recognition space. So if you need any assistance in these areas, don't be afraid to hit me or the team up. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, best of luck on your growth journey.